Grady Powell, host of Forged in Fire.
Kyle Mann.
I'm Jay Warner Wallace.
Kira Davis.
It's Ben Adams.
Hey, this is Dave Baker.
Carrie Pomeroli.
This is Mike Reiner.
This is Ethan Nicole.
This is Leanne Morgan.
It's Graham Parker, the 5th GP, and this is why you should never.
Never.
How I got suckered in.
I'm so embarrassed that I'm here.
You're wasting your time. You got better things to do.
Never listen.
Those darling, yummy Reverend and the Reprobate.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Reverend and the Reprobate Holiday Edition. I am Lucas Pinkert, an actual Reverend, and with me from home today is going to be the big man, Dan Fwip Gibson. Today on the show, we are talking to a friend of ours, Ron Waterman, who is UFC super heavyweight champion, was a pride fighting champion, was a cage fighting champion, and then on top of all of that, where he was a WWE superstar, we had him on the show a couple of years ago. He's been a friend of ours for going on just about 2 decades now. Well, today we have on not only Ron, but his son, Austin. Austin is currently 2-0 in his MMA career with his first title belt fight coming up in January. We wanted to get Austin on before the guy hits it big. We're going to talk about how he got his career started in MMA. We'll talk a little bit to Ron about what it's like watching his son follow in his footsteps and get some insight on the guys of what it was like as a son watching a dad fight, and then also a dad watching his son fight, and then how you can balance out not just having a stellar MMA career, but also how do you balance out MMA plus work life? What does the fighter look like whenever he gets home and has to be dad to a couple of daughters? It is an awesome show. We weave in not only the fighting and faith, but also family, how all that works in together. It was an absolute blast getting to talk to these dudes. We hope that you guys enjoy it. Make sure that you like and subscribe. Ding the little bell on all those so you get notifications whenever we have our live streams or when new videos get posted. Thank you all for listening. And without any further ado, Ron and Austin Waterman.
Sounds good, buddy.
Sweet. Well, on our sweet, clean airways today, Fwip, we are rejoined by one of the first guests that we have. And as a matter of fact, a guy that I've known now, as I was talking to Kirsten about this, she was like, how long have you known the magnificent beast that is former UFC and Pride champion, WWE superstar Ron Waterman? I was like, you know what? Going on 20 years. I've known the guy for nearly 20 years. I want to welcome back to the show, big H2O man, Ron Waterman. What's going on, dude?
Thanks for having me back, brother. I'm glad to be here.
Well,
it's amazing that it's been 20 years.
No joke, right? And I'm still this ugly. So we've gotten together tonight because while Ron is typically the main event at anything that he's at, tonight we are here to talk about one of the budding stars of MMA, a man who has lost me more money in 30 seconds than just about anybody, surely by paying to watch his fight. It is the new up-and-comer in the middleweight division.
It's me.
It's Dan. No, it's Austin Waterman. What's going on, dude?
Hey man, how's it going? I appreciate you guys having me here today.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
Yeah, thanks for being on.
When I first saw your dad post a couple of things, he was like, yeah, Austin's got his first MMA fight. My wife and I were in the hospital with our son Levi, so we're in the NICU. And I'm just watching the highlights, and it was like a blink and the thing was over. And I was like, okay, this kid, like, he's not just a legacy. The kid is a stud. So we get your fight in November. It's over. Like, I don't think you've had a full minute in the ring of combat yet. It's been absolutely incredible to watch you so far. So how did you end up jumping into MMA?
So basically, I ended up jumping into MMA. I was just working blue-collar jobs, working out in the oil field for about 7 years, just really breaking my back, doing all this hard labor jobs. And man, I felt like I needed a break. And my break was going, believe it or not, was going back to wrestling. And to do that, I thought it was kind of fun to start the MMA stuff because that's what I grew up around. And I grew up following my dad all over the place, watching him do it. And I always enjoyed watching him, and I enjoyed wrestling. So I was like, man, I'm just going to go for it. And so this is my first year doing it, and I'm enjoying the heck out of it. So it's just kind of like a new thing, but also an old thing. So
yeah. So did you wrestle in high school and college at all?
I did all the way up to high school.
Okay.
I mean, I did about 15 years of wrestling.
Wow.
Who's your favorite wrestler? Let me get back in the shot here. Who's your favorite wrestler of all time?
Oh, I mean, man, I grew up in the era of Henry Cejudo, and I did a couple of his wrestling camps and stuff. So I enjoyed watching him wrestle in high school and also wrestling with him. So he's up there in one of my top.
So you're talking about like professional wrestling. I'm talking fake wrestling.
Oh, fake wrestling. Oh, I'm talking
WWE, WCW, NWL.
Okay. It's one of those things I really only watched it when my dad did it. So
Right.
I don't know. I'd have to just probably say my dad, to be honest.
Nice.
That's
Yeah.
good.
I like Brock Lesnar, all those guys too, because those are also my dad's buddies. So Brock Lesnar, Shane Carwin, all those guys, they're all really good guys. So.
Yeah, both the guys that your dad trained with and the guys that he wrestled with all ended up being just absolute studs. Do you think growing up in that environment, you said, you kind of went back to some of that because it's what you grew up around. Do you think that that's helped prepare you for fighting as a professional?
Yeah, I think it has. It's kind of helped me with the film, like the media aspect of it all, and just having cameras in your face because I kind of grew up around my dad, and he always had cameras and always had people coming up to him asking for autographs. So it's kind of in my alley. I feel like.
I'm curious, like for a while, I did jujitsu in the gym that I was out of. We had a lot of guys that fought MMA, and a few guys that were doing pro fights, and a lot of guys that would end up on these like jujitsu showcases where they would be fighting around the country. And the thing that they consistently said was that like the walk up, your walk up music comes on, and you get this boost of adrenaline, but they were never prepared for the moment that the bell rings and how everything kind of comes together. Talk to us.
It was the punches they weren't ready for.
Yeah, well, they like it before the punches, right? Like, what's the Mike Tyson quote? Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? Yeah, that was my experience in first grade. Whenever I thought it was real funny with your mama jokes, but when you're
well, you shouldn't have been telling them to me.
Yeah, when you're talking about walking into an arena for the first time, it's packed full of people. Your walk up music is coming on. Is there anything that you can do to prepare for that moment ahead of time, or is it something that can only be described right as soon as the bell rings?
Yeah, man, it's a whole other experience for sure for most people. But like I said, I have come from a wrestling background. I had two wrestling state championships, and both of those were held at the Pepsi Center. So we had a pretty big crowd there. It was like 7,000 people you're walking into.
Good grief!
And that was in high school. So I mean, I've been exposed to situations where I've had a lot of people with a lot of eyes on me. So it's a matter of wrestling's a little different. You shake hands and you're going. You're right in front of your opponent. Fighting, you're across the cage. That does add a little different aspect to it. You gotta come into the middle and start throwing hands, man, and that's a little different for a wrestler. But with my fights so far, I've just been taking it to the ground. But I don't know. We'll see on this next one what happens.
Yeah. So I was going to ask about that. Just like Lucas said, you're 2-0, pretty quick matches so far. So you took them to the ground and you got submission. So how do you think? How are you preparing for the move into MMA where you might have to stand up and fight standing up? What preparation are you taking for that?
So with these first two fights, it wasn't not my game plan to go in there and just take them right down. It was my game plan to go in there and stand up with them, bang for kind of to see what happens and see if I end up needing to take them down or not. Both times it kind of just fell into it. With the first fight, I just caught the guy's kick and I took him to the ground. It was kind of just natural at that point. The second fight, I gave him a right cross, and he fell to the ground. It looked like I almost knocked him out, and I was like, well, there goes that game plan. So I kind of just took him down from there. So I don't know, man. It's a fighting world. You don't know what's going to happen when you get in there.
So I'm curious, Ron. Yeah, what's it like watching so it's one thing to watch your kids wrestle, but it's another thing to watch them like engage in combat sports. What's that like as a dad?
Yeah, when you throw the punching and kicking aspect into it, and the guys out there trying to kill your boy, it's a little bit different. But like Austin told you guys earlier, he's been wrestling since he was 5 years old, and he's used to going out there on the mat by himself. I've been coaching him since he was 5 years old, so it's really a lot of the same feelings that I have. I still get a little bit nervous for him and stuff, but I'm so confident in his ability and how hard he trains and his skill level that, man, I don't think anybody around is going to touch him. So I'm confident, just like he is when he goes into a fight, that there's no way this guy is going to be able to hang with him. And that's kind of the view I have on all the fights. And that's kind of the way I was when I was in the ring as well and stepping into the cage. I knew that I had trained harder than my opponent, and there was no way that guy was going to stay with me for 3 rounds regardless.
It is interesting hearing you talk about Austin, because I knew you when I was growing up. You were fighting, and the way that you would talk about your fights then, you did have a lot of confidence, but you also had this kind of like meekness that you carried about you, where you were like, well, you know, nobody's going to out-train me. I'm going to do my best. But you never like had that. At least it came across, right? We're doing ministry work, so you're not going to be like in a church being like, no, I'm going to take the guy's head off. But when you were talking about the fights, you were very matter of fact. Hearing you talk about Austin, that nobody's going to beat him, that you don't think there's anybody that can touch him, it sounds like there's almost more confidence that you have in your son's abilities than maybe what you brought forth whenever you were talking about your own abilities. What's that like, seeing how good he's done in the ring the first 2, or I guess in the octagon for his first 2 matches?
Yeah, well, he's taken it upon himself to get real well-rounded. And back when I was fighting, you know, you could be a great wrestler and know a little bit of jiu-jitsu and dominate in the sport. Well, it's not like that anymore. I mean, these guys that are in there now are great. They've got great hands. They can kickbox. They can do Muay Thai. They're black belts in jiu-jitsu. They're great in judo. They've got all these aspects, and he's been applying himself to learn all this. It's not just his wrestling background that's winning him these fights. It's his confidence in his stand-up game. He's got great hands now, and it's just evolved just like anything else has, and he's evolved with the sport. And I think that gives him an edge over when I was in there for sure.
Well, Austin, I've got a question for you. So like you said, you've been working in the oil fields for a little while. What was the response from your coworkers when you said, "Hey, I'm training for, you know, to go to MMA, and this is a goal that I want to go to"? You know, what kind of response did you get from them?
Oh man, they're hyped about it. You know, the oil field guys.
I imagine
they want to be in there with me, man.
Right.
So that, you know, so far they've all been at the tables. They've all been supporting. It's been awesome. It's been a good support group.
that's cool. Did you roll with any of them in preparation? Like, were any of them willing to try?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a couple guys come into the gym every now and again, man. But yeah, it's hard work getting in there. It's not easy on your body. It's not easy on nothing. It's brutal. So yeah, it's not easy getting in there. So yeah.
I can only imagine.
I've got a training question about what Danley just asked, and the last episode that we recorded with Ron, Danley gave me a hard time the entire time because I talked about that I got to roll whenever we were on the road with your dad. And there was just like this helpless feeling that I had multiple times throughout, because he would be, you know, holding me down. He's just about 300 pounds at the time. And he's just like slowly just bringing his hand towards me. He's like, and this is how I'd be crushing the skull of this man that I'm fighting. And I'm just like helpless, you know, trying to do stuff. Do you, when you have the opportunities, if a buddy comes into the gym with you, do you do the same kind of thing in order to just be like, well, see, now this is the part where you would be
what
really
an armbar
hurt.
feels like.
Oh, I mean, I get in some good work with them. Usually I roll around with some guys with some experience.
Right.
I haven't rolled around with too many of just my buddies. I'll be in contact with just some people that are around me who have martial arts training, and I'll roll with pretty much anyone.
That's
so
awesome.
I get in good work with people.
One of the MMA stars that's kind of made the headlines recently is Paddy the Baddy. And one of the reasons that he has made headlines is because of his insane diets. Now, Ron wrestled and fought as a heavyweight and a super heavyweight. And not that there weren't cuts that had to be made, but when you're 295 pounds with abs, like, who's going to mess with you anyway? You were wrestling in the middleweight division, and you're how tall? Because you're not like, I'm 5'8" and 197 pounds. Like, I'm doughy, right? But where you're at, like, how tall are you right now?
About 6'2".
Okay, so 185 at 6'2", dude. That's lean. What's your diet like, and how are you? Because this is every other month for the last 6 months you've had a fight. What's that been like on your body, man?
Well, I mean, you know, I was kind of used to weight cutting from wrestling, but
Sure.
I always kind of wrestled up weights to find some better competition back in wrestling. So this is kind of new to me, the whole just staying on a diet for a long time deal, just because I've been months on end just having to keep my weight down. After the first fight, I jumped back up to 220, and I still
Nice.
got abs at like 215, 220.
What
So
a jerk.
it's a brutal cut. It's a brutal cut coming back down. But so right now I just try to stay around 200, and my body's happy. I got good energy. I'm able to perform very well every day at 200. But if I did just eat normal, I would probably go back up to 215 pretty easy.
So,
So
yeah, go ahead.
what are you eating? Because when I was, I used to be over 300, and it was not a good 300. It wasn't like Ron,
Yeah.
strong 300. It was fat 300. And my doctor ended up telling me I'm 6'1", and they said, hey, don't go beneath I think it was 225, because for you that would be getting too lean. I said, well, if that's what you say, then okay. But what kind of diet are you following in order to be at the weight that you need to be at?
Yeah, so mainly it's just discipline on not eating sugars and just not overeating. So if you just eat, you can eat
That's
even
the
you can still eat
secret.
5 meals a day as long as it's clean. You're going to be good. Your chicken and rice. You can still eat carbs. You just don't overdo it. Yeah, I really just chicken and rice, and my wife is always making good home cooked meals, and she's keeping the sugar and stuff pretty low. So as long as you keep that sugar out, you're good.
See, that's my problem is keeping the sugar out.
Exactly.
It's terrible. Like right now, I'm hiding it behind here, but I'm drinking a squirt, to make
Yeah,
sure. I
yeah.
mean, it's caffeine free, everybody. But
Lucas, I think we need to get sponsored by
dude, I
Squirt.
think we should, right? Not enough people are drinking
Yeah,
squirt these days.
we've talked about it enough.
So there are a lot of varying diets whenever it comes to things. I know when I was bodybuilding in the early 2000s, the thing was you cut all your carbs out. So no carbs, no fat the last like 6 or 8 weeks beforehand in order to try to lean out. And then there's other people that were doing only carbs in order that their muscle bellies would be filled and all these different kinds of things. We've seen those fads kind of come and go. Well, one of the other fads that we've seen come and go is people are hopping from gym to gym to gym in order to train. The days of all right, this is the gym that I train with. These are my guys. We're all ride or die together, like we used to see with some of the MMA gyms. They're not quite the same anymore. People are doing a lot of cross training in order that, like Ron was talking about, getting that interdisciplinary sort of roundness to their game that they've needed. When you go in and as you're prepping for a fight, what are the styles that you're looking at? Is it just like Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu like we hear? Are you doing kickboxing? Are you looking at judo? Like what stylistically, what are you studying and what are you getting into as you prep for a fight?
Yeah, man. So, typically when I'm not in a camp, I do a lot more technical work. But even in camp time, I'm still doing all the different I'm still practicing all the different kinds of fighting all throughout every single week. I'm not just doing kickboxing or boxing all week. We're typically mixing it up throughout the week. I'll do MMA grappling one day, and then I'll do jujitsu one day, and then I'll do boxing sparring one day, kickboxing sparring one day. We're really versatile in our gym. We got great coaches all the way around. We got a great Muay Thai coach, kickboxing coach, boxing coach, wrestling coach. We got guys from UNC coming over to work with us, so we got great wrestling. Man, it's just a well-rounded gym.
That's awesome. Now, I remember Ron had started to study capoeira. Is that right, Ron? Are you still doing that at all?
Oh,
The
that's so
Brazilian
cool.
breakdance fighting?
I don't remember doing that.
So what's
That's so cool of you, Ron.
yeah, that's so awesome. Ron, what's your involvement in camp been like? I mean, I've seen the pictures of you ringside that have been absolutely incredible to get to see that. I can't imagine, I've got my first few pictures with my son of me like reading him a book and I'm looking at how proud I am of those. He's barely able to lift his head up.
Hey, tell him what book it was.
Oh yeah, it's the Ninja Turtles Ronin comic. We got the graphic. Well, he needed something high contrast, right?
And he's already in training.
Yep, yeah, that's
Nice.
it. That's it. He's lifting his head up for more than like a minute at a time. He's on his way to being some kind of medalist. So, what's your involvement in the camps like?
Well, I'd like to get over and train with him more than I do. I actually just got to go over and roll with him last night, and I'm pretty sore today. But
So am
I'm
I.
not over there every day like he is training for 2 hours every single day. The guy doesn't take any breaks, and so kind of like a weekend warrior jumping in there sometimes. But I just try to hold my own when I'm in there against him now.
That's crazy to think about. I know Danley had a question about you guys and y'all's experience training. Go ahead, Dan.
Feels like a setup.
Yeah, absolutely it is. I love setting you up whenever it's these questions.
What was my question? Hey, do you remember what that question was?
Yes,
about
I
their
do.
experience in training?
I do. Yeah, Dan wanted to know how often Ron gets beat up by Austin.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did have that question. I would love it answered.
Well, the only lucky thing for me is I still have about 60 pounds on him, so
Okay.
I use all of that to my advantage. I'm kind of laying and praying on top of him most of the time.
That makes sense. Well, Austin, do you think if you gained about 60 pounds, how well do you think you'd fare against old dad?
I don't know, man. With 60 more pounds, I think it would be a pretty good matchup. We're
Yeah.
both pretty hard-headed. We're both pretty hard-headed, man.
Yeah.
We both leave with bloody noses and stuff after practice.
Man, you guys are tough.
Plus, if he could add 60 more pounds, that means the wife could add some sugar back to his diet, so he'd be a lot happier also. And that going in with a smile on your face can really perk up your your ability to grapple. You've had 2 fights. You're coming in on your third is coming up on January 20th, and this is a title fight. Man, that's pretty cool. Third fight is a title fight. How are you feeling about having your opportunity to take the middleweight title?
Yeah, man, I'm excited. I'm glad things are moving the way they are. I got good momentum going right now. It is just an amateur title, but it's exciting still. And I'm hoping to have a lot more to come.
So what's the process like? Because I think there are so many, I think just novice UFC fans and MMA fans that we look at everything and we see somebody that comes in to the UFC and they're like, oh, their record is 7-0. And we just think, oh, well, they've only had 7 fights. Like anybody could have 7 pro fights and get lucky 7 times, but that's not what this road is like at all. Right. So what do the ranks look like as you're working your way up into, whether it's moving towards UFC or moving towards, professional MMA overseas in Tokyo or some of the stuff that they're now doing over in Ireland. We see that a lot of these sort of smaller, I don't know what you would call them, promotions are sort of starting up. What's this journey look like for somebody that wants to get started in MMA?
To get started in it, you're going to start out just in the amateurs in your home state. You can travel states, I believe, as well, but you just got to get the blood work and everything done in every state. But you just start out in amateur league, and they'll put you in the rankings after your first fight. Depending on who you fight, that's where you sit. After amateurs, though, you run through the amateurs, you get the belt, you get number 1 rank. From there, in the pros, to be honest, I don't really know. Maybe I don't know how many ranking systems there are, if there are different ranking systems with like UFC or Japan, or I don't know if it's all just one. I'm sure there's just a national ranking system, but I think there's a bunch of different ones as well with every promotion.
So, Ron, what was your experience like on the pro side of MMA, fighting with different promotions? I mean, you fought with UFC. I still have the original PlayStation game where I can fight as Ron. That it has not aged well, but I gotta say your polygons still look great to this day. But as you're moving up and fighting in different promotions, what's it like on the professional side, and what do you see Austin's potential as moving forward?
Well, Lucas, things have changed a lot since I was in there. I never started out as an amateur. I entered a professional tournament, and had 3 fights. And the referee for my first 3 fights, it was all in one night, by the way.
Whoa.
I had 3 fights, won all 3 fights in about 25 seconds, and was invited right to the next UFC because the winner of this competition called the Boss Fruit Invitational was going to get to go right to the UFC. So fortunately, I won that competition, got invited right to the UFC, and my MMA career just kind of exploded from that one that one tournament that I had. It's not like that today. These guys have to have upwards towards a dozen fights before they're even looked at by the UFC, and they're gonna have to move up into bigger promotions. I mean, Austin's starting now, and like Sparta, and he's going to get some attention from people. It was kind of nice because his very first fight, the UFC was doing a documentary on me, so they followed me to the fight and were actually ringside taping the whole thing. So he got some UFC exposure.
That's awesome.
Right from his very first fight. But there's lots of organizations out there right now, some that UFC kind of looks at, and it's kind of like their farm clubs for them. And that's my plan, is to get Austin into some of those. That they're not going to pay great at first, but it's all stepping stones. I've also got some contacts over in Japan with the Pancrase organization I fought for, and the old Pride Fighting organization now, and I'd like to get him over there and get him some experience overseas. And I also have the X1 belt in Hawaii, and I've got some contacts out there, so that'd be another fun organization to get a belt with. So it's all just exposure.
Yeah. Well, Austin, we are watching your career very, very closely. That's awesome.
But the Pancrase sounds terrible.
Yeah,
that's the
that's
worst name for it really sounds like you're injured and puking bile whenever I hear that. That's exactly what.
Yeah, and
I imagine.
Canada has the thyroid circuit.
So the only thing in Japan is you fight in a ring, not in a cage. So it's a little bit of a different feeling over there, because you can actually throw your opponent through the ropes.
Whoa, like on WCW versus NWO World Tour on the N64.
Now we're talking.
Does the audience also throw out black baseball bats if you dress up as Sting? Those are the questions that need answers. So, Austin, as you're looking at this fight that's coming up in January, right? And I know you've got to be focused on your opponent before you looking too far down the road, right? You take your eyes off of what's right in front of you. A lot of times people get caught off. When we look though at people that are sort of in your position, that are incredibly high achievers, that are phenomenal, that are world-class athletes, one of the things that I always ask them, because it's super fascinating to me, is how do you set your goals? Like, what does goal setting look like for you whenever it comes to like day-to-day and long-term?
Right. So I make big goals for myself, big goals that I want to achieve long term. But I really like to just focus on my small goals step by step. So the small goals would be just to get through every day, every practice without getting hurt. You got to do one day at a time. After that, yes, and then I'm looking at my week before. I'm looking at my fight day. I'm looking at my weight cut day. I got a lot of goals. I got a lot of small goals I achieve, but it's all working towards my big goal, which is to make some good money in this fighting game.
So are you one of these guys that like you write down your goals every day, or you kind of have in your mind what you want or what your benchmarks are and where you want to be? What does the goal planning process look like for you? Because this is something that completely fascinates me, especially with guys in combat sports.
Yeah, I'm kind of all in my head. I got it all in there, and I kind of just a mental checklist every day, making sure I get done what I got to get done. I get done the cardio I got to get done, the workouts I got to get done, the food I got to get done. I mean, you got to be pretty strict with yourself. You can't slack, because your opponent, he's not out to slack. So
yeah, I that is an interesting point. As from goal setting, if I set a goal like I want to lose some weight, there's not a guy that's ready to punch me at the end of it.
Exactly. Yeah, if you slack, you're going to pay for it yourself. You're only hurting yourself.
That is a really interesting consequence, or potential consequence. I got to fight this guy here coming up. Yeah, that's a pretty good motivation.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like you said, so the personal goals that you have for you and your family, and that's awesome. What does the rest of your family think about you following in your dad's footsteps?
Oh man, I'm driving my wife crazy, that's for sure. She's pulling her out a little bit. She's already got the anxiety. We have 3 little girls, so she's already pretty high anxiety ridden. But she's confident in my skills, just like my dad is. She knows I'm going to go out there and just whip some butt. Even though she's out there ringside just screaming, bawling every time. But I do my best to calm her down.
I can. What do the girls think? What do your daughters think?
Oh, well, right now they all love it because they're all at that
Yeah.
age where they're just screaming, hooting, hollering for the dad. But
Dad,
yeah, I don't
Dad's
know when.
literally a superhero.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's out going out there beating people up right now. So hopefully, I don't. They don't have to see the other end of it. But
That's right.
that just comes with the job.
Yeah.
I'm so like my wife gets nervous if I climb up on a ladder. I can't imagine if I were to like step into the octagon, right? Yeah, she's like, "How's your knee, honey?" I'm like, "It's fine. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, every now and then
it's
I'll
good.
hurt my back and I'll try to pick something up. She goes, "Are you out of your mind?" Trying to pick up that remote.
Yeah. So you mentioned, one of your goals is to work injury free, and that's a really difficult thing to do. I know. I remember a story once upon a time where a guy was just rolling with a buddy, and they were just practicing really simple, just sort of the over under and the switches there, and he ends up tearing his labrum on his shoulder. Right, something super simple that they do every day. That's what happens. I tore my ACL doing a shoulder press, which doesn't even make sense, right? How do you do something to your leg whenever you're doing stuff with your shoulders? Danley threw his back out when we worked at Chili's, filling up a to-go cup with ice, right? Yep. So when it's a true story, I had to take it to the hospital. So when you're training in order to prep
look,
for
I'm
a fight,
not a tough man, okay?
So you're training in preparation for this championship fight. You're also, you're trying not to get hurt. So I got a twofold question for you. One, how do you prep for your training in order to prevent injury? And second, how do you train in order to prepare without training scared?
So really, it's all about that preparation going into the gym. I'm the first one in there every day. I'm in there 20, 30 minutes before everyone else gets in there every day, just stretching. I jump rope. I stretch vigorously. It's not something I slack on. I've never been late my stretching times. Me being already 28 years old, a lot of these guys are coming in 22, 23. They don't have to worry so much about stuff being so tight. But I feel like I got some stuff getting tight on me from all the oil field work. So I stretch a lot, and I'm smart when I roll. I start off a little slow, and then I pick up the pace, and then I just don't get bad injuries doing it the way I do it. I get little tiny nicks and tears here and there, but that's stuff you can work through.
I'm curious about something just because it got thrown out there. We're promoting the episode, the last fight that you had in November. One of the things that we were doing is we were throwing out some of our micro clips, our 5-10 minute long videos on YouTube of when we got to talk to your dad, and we're doing hey, watch Ron's son, like check this fight out. So a friend of mine looks at it and he goes, this guy looks like I think what the Paul brothers want to look like whenever they fight. Right. So when you're talking and kind of framing things within this generation, I don't want to necessarily throw some bear traps out for you to kind of step in. What, from a mentality standpoint, as you're talking to people about what you're doing now, because I feel like everything now has to be kind of viewed through the lens of social media. Like, oh, are you trying to do this because you're trying to get famous? Or are you trying to do this because, your dad did it? Like, what's the motivation for you to be in MMA, and why was this such an important move for you?
So, just, ever since I've ended high school, I've just been looking for that one thing that really just I enjoy doing. I enjoyed working in the oil field. Yeah, I made decent money. A couple of $100,000 years. It's all good and all, but it wasn't very self-fulfilling. This right here is something that I kind of feel like it just kind of fills me up, and I also want to be able to just support my family a little bit better with it as well. That would be a good perk as well. But I really just am happy doing it, and I have a good time with it. So it kind of just brings me back to my roots, and I'm enjoying it. So that's pretty much why right now.
That's awesome. Ron, as a dad, right, and so much of everything in my life has changed over the last 3 months since I became a father, right? Like I'm changing.
You turned Catholic.
Yeah. I'm a Catholic now. No, as I'm watching my son grow up, right? He's 12 pounds. And I'm just like, oh, he's the biggest kid that's ever lived. He's
Super
gonna just kill
heavyweight.
everywhere. Yeah, yeah. So like as we're watching, even at this point, like I'm wondering to myself, like, what are you gonna want to do? What are your dreams, and what's that gonna look like on the other end? Like if I get to see you realize those things. Either the same thing. Dan's kid is 13, and these are things that we've talked about. We talk about this kind of stuff a lot with the men's group at our church. You're getting to see your son live out his dream. And he's excelling at it. Like, what's that like as a dad, like actually getting to be part of your son's dream as he's realizing it?
Lucas, it's really cool because, I think that Austin would probably agree after he graduated and, didn't pursue wrestling in college or move on with it, that there was so much untapped potential there, and both of my boys are the same. I mean, they're just great athletes and studs and had that mentality, that hard work and work ethic was always there. So to see him go, even after taking a break for a couple of years and now coming back into MMA and seeing him work as hard as he is right now. And it's exciting for me as a father to watch him and to see him start to climb the ladder. And, of course you're going to live a little bit through your own kids out there. So that's a fun part of it as well, to get back in that cage and just watch him excel.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that's got to be such a cool thing. Austin, you said you get 3 little girls, which seems that seems utterly terrifying to me. The thought of one little girl seems utterly terrifying. I'm the oldest of 4. My dad, like the baby in our family is a little girl. Dad said time and time again, if she would have been first, like only child, right? So, and you mentioned that they're, ringside screaming for you. They're super excited about it. Do you have to switch gears from being like, the MMA fighter? You come home and then you're like, hey, you know what? It's time for the tea party. Like, what's that look like? Kind of dropping that, or coming home from having this training mentality where you're working hard, you're fighting somebody for hours on end, day after day after day. How do you make that transition into like, now I'm home? What's that like for you?
Even with training and stuff, I go hard and stuff and everything, but I keep it playful and I keep it fun. I'm not a crazy serious training guy who's just freaking gonna go out there and go balls to the wall the whole time. I'm having fun with it. Coming home, it's not too much of a transition for me. I'm always just a fun-loving dad to my little girls, and I don't know. I'm a fun dad even at the gym. So even the guys out there, they have a good time with me. Even after getting beat up by each other, we still laugh and have fun while we're rolling.
Well, what do you plan on doing or saying to the little boys, to the boys that those little girls end up bringing around to meet dad?
Oh man, I don't even know yet. I'm not ready for that conversation yet.
You've got time. I gotcha.
Yeah,
Well,
I have a little bit of time still.
Well, maybe you've got time to have a couple belts when they come around to just show them.
Exactly. Yeah, I'll have a couple belts that I can show off. And
Yeah. Here you go. This is look how big this belt is. Look at that.
Ron, you're
Heavy
about
belt.
to Ron's about to be in that position with his young daughter, right? How old is your kiddo, Ron? Your youngest?
Sophie is 9 years old. So
Good grief.
it's getting closer than I want it to be.
Man, that's crazy.
We're praying for many more years, Ron.
Yeah.
It's a good reason for me to stay in shape and to keep rolling.
Yeah, for sure. So are you guys like comparing notes? Are you going to just pass some stuff to us and be like, look, these things worked in the ring, but on prom night, these are the lines that worked really well. This is what we'll do. Are you just going to line up all 3 of the boys outside and be like, these are the rules for, here are the 10 simple rules for dating the Waterman girls.
Just stand up against them.
Yeah, they'll definitely get the stare down when they walk into the house.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Well, hey, Austin, talk to us about your upcoming fight. Who's your opponent, and what should we be expecting on January the 20th?
Yeah, so coming up January 20th, it's in Aurora, Colorado. It's against Zach Riley is his name. He's been fighting for a little while now. About 9 or 10 years he's been fighting. So
Wow.
he's got a little bit of experience under his belt. But he's only got about 4-2 on his MMA record, so it should be a better show though. I mean, who's to say it won't just look like the last 2? But it just depends on what happens when that bell rings.
That's so awesome. I'm really stoked to get to see that. Dan, are you ready to enter into the final segment of the show?
Yeah, I'm ready
Let's
to go.
do it. Well, guys, and Ron, you may not know this because last time you weren't on, we weren't doing this, but we end all of our shows now with a segment that we call Controlled Rowdiness. It's just a series of rapid fire questions. They'll be directed right at you, so you can answer with as long or as short a response as you like. Expect nothing from us by way of response or reply. Know that there are no right answers, but there are several wrong ones, so make sure not to step in any of those landmines. And to get us going, I'm going to toss it over to General Grease.
Hi, I'm General Grease, and you should never listen to the Reverend and Reprobate. Austin, do you know who the Island Boys are?
Yes, I do.
Okay. How long do you think the fight will last 2-on-1 versus the Island Boys?
Oh man, I would say under 30 seconds.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think so too. I think so too.
So, Ron, of all the countries that you have fought in, what is the one country that you would promote Austin in, but that you would never fight in yourself?
Well, that's kind of a hard question. Maybe Russia.
Oh.
Ooh, why? I'm curious. Follow up.
Oh, it's just such a messed up country right now.
That's true.
Austin would be in and out of there, so it'd be all right.
And before that, the USSR was still messed up.
Yes.
So Ron, what do you think?
Yeah,
It's the tag team match of your dreams with your son.
Oh, the tag team match of my dreams. Maybe
I mean, it can be old school. It didn't have to be,
I wouldn't,
current wrestlers.
Yeah, I'd wrestle Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair. Like, I'm not picking any of these new guys.
I would like to have maybe Bobby Lashley in there.
Oh, yeah.
Whoever he picks. And,
all right.
Let Austin and I take those two apart.
That would be absolutely entertaining. I would.
Okay, Austin, who's your pick then?
My dad's is Bobby Lashley.
Yeah, his is Bobby Lashley. Who you got?
Let's throw Jake Paul in there.
Oh, all right. There you go. Going a little contemporary. Yeah. I like it.
Yeah.
Ron, when you get to be our age, you and I, social media is a little difficult. Which social media platform do you hate the most?
Ooh, good a question.
Oh, I'm not much of a TikToker.
The correct answer is TikTok. Well done. Bing.
I personally TikTok till I drop.
That's absolutely terrible.
I'm such a dad, I know. Austin, who is the best Muppet?
Best Muppet?
Yeah.
I don't know that one, man. I don't got you there.
There's not a correct answer, but Gonzo would work.
I don't even know the Muppets, man.
Pepe the Shrimp, the King Prawn.
I think you would get along with my wife because my wife hates the Muppets, and I grew up with them. And so I think that they're fantastic, and it is one of the many things that I will turn on whenever I'll flip on Disney Plus and turn on something the Muppets, and she immediately is like, "Nope, the baby's sleeping." She could be holding him and he's wide awake, and she's using him as an excuse to get the Muppets off of our television.
Also, that's a fair answer to, hey, you're training to be an MMA fighter. Who's your favorite Muppet? I don't know.
Right.
That's a good answer. That works.
The Reverend and the Reprobate are his favorite Muppets. So. You guys get to each one of you will answer this question. You have an opportunity. You're fighting for a title belt. You get to fight on any stage in the U.S. Where is your dream venue to fight for a title in the United States?
Yeah, there's a lot of cool places. We just had one of our fighters out of our gym fight in Milan, Italy. That would have been a pretty cool place to fight. Just really traveling the world fighting would be awesome. So maybe, I don't know, just out in Japan. I don't know, man. Just anywhere other than here right now.
I gotcha. Ron, what about you? If you could pick any venue to have a championship fight, where would it be?
It's weird because I fought all over the world, but I never fought in Vegas, and I never had a fight like at the MGM Grand. Yeah, I had fights almost every other state, but never in Vegas.
Yeah, see, I would think Vegas or
Vegas was my first thought.
or MSG, right? Madison Square Garden seems to be one of those places where no matter what sporting event it is, it's one of those just iconic venues.
Iconic, yeah.
Yeah, that people go to. I can tell you where you shouldn't have one, and that is at the new Cowboy Stadium in Arlington. Because while there are a ton of people that can be seated there, the acoustics are terrible, and you can't see. Everybody just looks like ants. It's like a Zoolander thing being put on, so they're just going to watch you on the screens.
They got those big screens, though.
Yeah, the screens are massive. It's absolutely insane. All right, Austin, last question for you, boss. If you could be doing any sport professionally other than mixed martial arts, what would it be?
Any sports? Yeah, wasn't a sports guy before mixed martial arts. I'm sorry, man. Yeah, I was just a blue collared worker, and then I enjoyed MMA, and so I don't even watch football on the weekends. So
Well,
Nothing.
I don't really.
the
I
correct
got nothing for it.
It's MMA. It's MMA or bust.
the correct answer was
Exactly.
pickleball. Pickleball was what we were looking for there as the new,
Hey,
as the
yeah.
new professional sport.
I've got one last one.
Go for it,
Ron.
man.
Ron, what happened to Carol Baskin's husband?
Oh, did he get eaten by a tiger?
That's what I think
Supposedly.
we all think.
Right now,
Yeah.
you tell us, did he really get eaten by a tiger? Breaking news, Ron Waterman.
Yes, he did.
He really did. Well, there you have it,
It was-
ladies and gentlemen.
There you go.
It was ugly.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking us out. Austin, Ron, thanks for coming on. Austin, tell everybody where it is that they can find you on social media and how they can watch your fight on January 20th.
All right, so you can tune in live pay-per-view. You can find those links on my Facebook page, just at Austin Waterman. You can find me on Facebook. My Instagram is going to be Austin Waterman MMA. And then I also have a TikTok under Austin Waterman MMA as well. And I'm putting information out on all platforms. I'm hyping up the fight on all platforms, and you'll be able to get a link anywhere on all of those.
Right on. Ron, where can our audience find you?
We're on TikTok.
I don't even know what my TikTok handle is. I think I have one, but I've never used it before, so I don't even know. But I'm at Ron Waterman on Instagram and also at Facebook.
Right on. Well, thank you guys so much for being on the show. Best of luck on January 20th to Austin, and
Go Austin.
and to Dad, going to be sitting ringside, just coaching himself up and watching his kid hopefully just win his first title. Would be absolutely awesome. Thanks you guys for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us, guys.
Big thanks to Ron and Austin for coming on the show. It was an absolute blast to get to sit down and to chat with those guys. Links in the show notes if any of you are interested in checking out Austin's pro fight, where he will be competing for the middleweight belt in January. It's been just so incredible watching how Ron has become a dad, encouraged his kids to do their own thing, and yet watching them follow a lot of times in his footsteps. And Austin's got a crazy and incredible career up ahead of him. Make sure that you show him some love and support. Go give them a follow. Check the links to the show notes for everything. Thank you guys for watching The Reverend and The Reprobate. We'll both be back in studio next week. So make sure that you tune in as we give a few little updates on what's been going on in our lives, some updates on baby Levi, and we get stopped in on by a friend of the show whose episode never made it to air. It is Dr. Ryan Winders, the creator of Winders' Laws of Inverse Proportions. You're not going to want to miss it next week on The Reverend and The Reprobate. You guys stay hard, keep jamming, and we'll see you.
All right, this is the up-and-coming MMA superstar, Austin Waterman, and this is why you should never listen to the Reverend and Reprobate.
This is MMA competitor and WWE wrestler Ron H2O Waterman, and this is why you should never listen to the Reverend and the Reprobate.